Alrighty. Hi there, everybody. So it's Brett Wicken again, continuing on my series on Vipassana meditation. And for those of you who maybe were a little thrown off by somewhat of the academic approach of my previous videos, there will be no PowerPoint today. It'll just be me talking. So I hope that pulls some of you in. I hope that that's a digestible medium. And the reason I'm doing this today is because really what I'm talking about is non-academic. And if you watched my previous video, I ended my last section on the clinical perspective of Vipassana meditation with a quote from Jon Kabat-Zinn discussing that meditation is something that really has to be understood from within, from an experiential perspective. And I really want to highlight some of that experiential perspective today. And kind of starting with a critique of my last video, I really championed the mantra that meditation changes the brain, and it most certainly does. And it most certainly can change the brain in ways that we can pontificate on as being beneficial. We can hypothesize where these mechanisms of action are and how they manifest in the brain. But just because it changes the brain doesn't necessarily mean it's a panacea for all that ails us. And I don't want to pitch mindfulness as a panacea, although I do think it can be a solve for a lot of the burns and cuts we do experience in life. But eating breakfast changes the way your brain works. Getting a good night's sleep changes connectivity in your brain. Abusing substances changes connectivity in the brain. And so I want to be wary of our conversation regarding, well, it leads to neurological adaptations. Many things do, if not all things do. We are a highly evolved cerebral creature who is forming new connections and working our way through the world, and we are formed by the world. We do not form the world. And so I want to go a little bit deeper beyond just the clinical perspective and talk about why. So many of us are operating in the world with a set of schemas, a set of patterns, and we're really approximating. We're living the life that was given to us with the roadmap we were handed down on how to navigate it. And as we've grown up, we've realized that some ways to navigate aren't as beneficial to us as others. Some of us have had to reinvent the roadmaps that we were given because they were faulty from the get-go. But we're always approximating. We're always trying to form better ways of thinking, better ways of making our world around us more in line with our internal world. And a lot of times when I talk to people, we talk about happiness and sadness as these externally generated factors, that what is inherently a product of the mind is completely external to the mind itself. And yes, the mind depends on the body and the body depends on the world. But the experience of happiness, the experience of sadness, of anger, of depression, of anxiety, of jubilant joy or downright existential fear, these are mental reactions. They are things that go on inside of us. And I stand by the statement that the quality of a life is dictated by the quality of our minds. And when we are out of control of our minds, when we simply react and take everything that comes into our minds as true, we lose that sense of control. We lose the ability to gain a semblance of power over the thing that dictates what may be the most important thing in our lives, which is, are we happy? And so meditation does not make you happy. Meditation does not induce a state of bliss. Meditation can sometimes induce feelings of fear and sadness. It makes us confront things that maybe we have been avoiding or have been trying to run away from. And so what meditation does do, though, what Vipassana meditation does, what that insight does, is it allows us to tune into the experience in a way that it decouples negative experiences from our mental world. So if we're angry, and instead of thinking about all the reasons and support for why we should really be angry, why what that person just said was so wrong and so out of line, and how justified we are. Instead of thinking about that, if we simply stepped back and paid attention to the rising sensation in our chest, the flushness in our hands, the flushness in our face, maybe the tightness in our throat, if we simply pay attention to those, we simply watch them rise and we watch them fall, how angry will you stay? How long does that feeling last? How many of us have been angry for not just minutes, but hours, days? I most certainly have. How many of us have sat there on our sadness sometimes and simply poked and prodded and criticized the reasons that we were sad, or questioned the reasons why we're happy? And so we go through this mental gambit of looking at our experience and trying to either add fuel to the fire or run away from the fire. We fear that if we stand too close, we'll be consumed. If we stand too far away, we won't feel the warmth of our experience. And I think meditation allows us to stand somewhere in the middle. And meditation allows us to be curious about our experience. Really, what is beyond the general frame of insight, what makes meditation truly impactful is the notion of equanimity. How can I hold the good and the bad as equally valuable? How can I react to both in the same way? And I want to pause here, and I want, if you're watching this, to just take a moment to reflect. Can you think about a time where you were so upset, you were so sad, it felt like it was never going to end? Whether it be grief, whether it be loss, whether it be shame or guilt, these feelings that stick to the core of who we are, that feel like they're never going to leave. Did they? Have they persisted for years? They persist for months? And I'm going to go on a limb here and say no. And it's because everything that we experience comes to pass. Everything about our lives comes to an end. There are new beginnings and there's always new ends. And I know that's a cliche statement, but what meditation does is it allows us to hold on to that notion that even though I'm incredibly, incredibly sad right now, I know it'll pass. Even though I'm incredibly happy right now, I can cherish the fact that I'm happy and it'll pass. I won't cling to it. I won't hold on to it. I won't chase it. And the same goes for our impulses. The same goes for the things that we want to be better at. The things that we're examining, the way that we want to approach the world. That if I want to go to the gym and I'm just feeling really lazy today, that I can be mindfully aware of that impulse that I want to sit and just do nothing. I can accept it and I can let that impulse pass without acting on it. So when we're given options, which is really what the mind does, is it throws things up for you to bite. It throws things up for you to act on. And when we meditate and we start to hone that ability to simply accept the good and the bad, we can make better choices. We can begin to live an examined life. We can cherish the moment that we have right now. And I want to end this with an example, okay? So let's say you're out on a date with your significant other. They are telling you about their day, and they seem upset. They seem very animated about what's going on. And your phone goes off. You've been expecting a very important email. And you look at it, you don't answer it, but you start thinking, what was that email? Could it be the one for work? What if I got that email? What would that mean? If it went badly, what would that mean? And all of a sudden, you feel like you're in the experience. You feel like you're connecting with your partner. But are you really? Or are you lost in this mental game that you formed, in this dreamlike fairy tale of thoughts, of potentialities? And what are you missing? You're missing a moment to really build with that partner. You're missing a moment to really connect. And that's what meditation, I think, really, it's beautifully curious at its core, is I recognize that this may be important, but right now I'm making the decision to give this person all of myself. What could happen to our relationship if I truly gave this person all I can give them right now? What would that be like? And the more we practice this, the more we take what we learned on the mat and put it into our lives, I think the fuller lives we can live. I think the happier we'll be. I think the stings don't sting as much, and if they do, they don't bother us as much. So we practice not just for ourselves, we practice for the people in our lives. We practice so that we can live in accordance with our values. We practice so that pain isn't as big of a deterrent as it usually is. And I like to wax and wane philosophical, which you may have picked up on by now, but I do love the famous quote from Socrates that says, "A life unexamined is a life unlived." And the more we examine our lives from a compassionate and curious place, the better off I think we are. So thank you all for listening. Again, wishing you all a blessed and happy day. And I'll be talking more about some of the mechanics of Vipassana meditation in the next video. Thank you very much.